Welcome to this edition of Beers with Bill. It is my pleasure to welcome back Lager Dave from Elora Brewing and to welcome Andrew and Aiden to the show. Guys, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having us.
Which beer are we going to start off with?
Well, we talked about starting off with the Riverboat. What do you think, Aiden? Do you think the Riverboat into the Dort, since the Dort's almost a bit more bitter?
I think so.
All right,
Yeah.
Let's start off with the Riverboat Fantasy then. I had one of these for a week or so. Do you want to talk about this one, Aiden, since this is your beer?
Yeah. So this one we kind of brewed all Ontario hops for the Ontario Hop Challenge. So the style this year was an APA. So kind of going that like more classic pale ale, something you would drink like a few years ago. Just wanted to make it like really refreshing, easy drinking, still give it a good body and good head retention. So we did like more carafoam than we typically would in those sorts of beers, and I really like the way it turned out. Some nice local from Fergus or Chinook and
Sterling,
Crystal,
yeah.
Crystal, and yeah.
Yeah, we did this when this is beer we entered into the Ontario Hop competition. So it's the competition that you pair with a hop grower, and then they determine the style and the style guidelines. So yeah, more of a classic American pale ale, nice kind of like crisp and dry with a nice hop character. And yeah, I really like how this one turned out. And that carafoam Aiden mentioned, that's more as a dextrin malt, so it kind of adds a bit more unfermentable sugars to it. So just kind of gives it a bit more fuller body.
How do you find working with Ontario hops compared to the regions you would normally buy from?
Yeah, I mean they're different. Just like every region is different. I find I get a lot more. Like, say if you're wanting to compare like Cascade or Chinook, like a variety like that, I feel like you get more like melon. I get a lot more melon out of, say, Cascade than the US varieties. And then even some other more kind of like maybe even like berry and more kind of rounded versus like berry, sharper citrus. I don't know what do you guys think?
Yeah, I think some of the like really big tropical citrus notes are maybe a little less than some of the in the States or Australia. Yeah, a little more berry, I would say.
That is a potly fun, the pairings.
That's awesome. I didn't think I'd seen that. That's good. And then yeah, you can't go wrong with a little David Wilcox, right? Sailing down a riverboat, having a party. I don't know if anyone here has ever seen David Wilcox before, but he puts on a hell of a show.
Yeah. So what you're saying is terroir actually does have an impact on what is brought forward in the hop. So
yeah, absolutely. And I mean, we're kind of like still a bit like far behind maybe on our, in our, not like technology, but like the breeding programs and stuff like that. So it's kind of where other countries have they're like kind of putting a lot more resources into it and stuff like that. So we're still learning lots as we go. But I think yeah, we're always using Ontario hops. We put we put a little bit in most of our beers. From Dean. These hops are from Can Aussie Farms in Fergus. And Dean, he's a great guy. And then we have some hops from Hayho Hops down in Elmer too. And they're growing really nice hops as well.
So, Aiden,
Yes.
what's your favorite style of beer to brew?
My favorite style, definitely saisons. I think like Dave and Andrew definitely hear me talk about them a lot. Maybe I've slowed it down a little bit, but I think saisons are like so interesting because everyone kind of has their own approach to it. Where like if you're brewing a hazy IPA, a lot of people kind of take it the same direction. Saisons are a lot more personable and kind of like each brewer takes such a different approach that you're always kind of surprised when you find one and it's just like, wow, like that's really like has a really nice like mineral character. Some people kind of lean to like the malty side a little bit more. So yeah, saisons are always an adventure.
So now you have me intrigued. How do you get a little more mineral character into a saison?
I think like for brewing in Elora, with our water being so hard, it kind of naturally blends to it. Like we don't do all that much to our water. We like all of our beers are really complemented by that Elora water, as you'll see with like the Dortmunder. So just using like some lighter malts that don't kind of contribute too much flavor really lets that water shine, and then the hopping and everything as far as that.
Okay, thank you. I was just curious how you would bring the mineral forward. So what you're saying is using a lighter malt bill, so it
Yeah.
doesn't overtake the flavor of the minerality of the water.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, Andrew.
I'm partial to IPAs myself. I just a big fan. Tends to be what I go to drink at home too. So that's usually my go-to. That's my favorite. But I guess some of these guys with their lagers and saisons rub off on me a little bit too. So gaining greater appreciation for a wider spectrum.
Okay, any particular style of IPA?
I mean, I feel like I like the middle ground between some of the really New England hazy, but then West Coast. I feel like I flip flop back and forth, kind of one way or the other. I'll lean in one way and then feel myself being dragged back the other way. I think they both offer some really differing characteristics that can be nice at different times of year or different feelings, however you feel on a given weekend.
So how do you guys decide what to brew, since the three of you have such a different flavored hop to a favorite beer to brew?
Yeah, I mean, we try to put it out across the whole company too, because we don't want to just us just decide what we're brewing the whole time, because we are this is the whole brew team, but we want the salespeople, we want the marketing, we want the owners to have a say too, right? So we'll sit down once in a while and throw together some ideas and just try to put a lineup together that's going to always complement each other. So we obviously have our core beers, and then different times a year we have seasonals that are coming back. And I really love seasonals because I love the idea of this beer is coming back every year and you can get it for this period of time, and then it's gone again, right? And then when we have tank space, then we kind of try to throw something fun in there. So these normally smaller batch stuff, but then once we got everything kind of like checked off, and we can kind of have a bit of fun, and then I'm trying to put a schedule together too, where it's just like we all can do our own thing. So I want to put beer in the schedule that Andrew can brew what he wants, whatever he wants, kind of thing, and one that Aiden can brew, kind of that sort of thing. And then yeah, because it's good to have that variety, because if just one of us was always deciding, right, then it wouldn't be that, we would maybe not have the most diverse lineup of beers on our taps. So
Are you going to
Well,
bring
it's a
back the
question
summer
of-
Pilsner?
the Pilsner?
The summer Pilsner from 2020. Someone's curious if you're going to bring that back.
Oh, were they meaning the regular Pilsner or the better together, that flavored Pilsner that we did, the fruited Pilsner?
David, you'll have to answer that one yourself.
Sorry, is this about the Pilsner?
Yeah, so we have our the Elora Pilsner going into the LCBO this summer.
No, I think it was 2 summers ago you did one that was like, I remember mentioned it as like a Bud Light Lime knockoff and a Radler knockoff.
Oh, okay, yeah. That was the better together.
Yeah, that's right.
Did you try that one, or?
Yeah, I really liked the lime one particularly.
Yeah. So we were talking about doing something like that again. I really like the idea of like brewing like low ABV beer, especially in the summertime. Like there seems to be more and more of a market for low ABV beers. So I kind of was just briefly talking with one of the owners the other day about doing something like that again. So yeah, the possibilities there, and then but then maybe one of the variations would just be a straight up like 3% or like 2.5% Pilsner or something like that, because I feel like that would be, I mean, if we had that in the summer, that's all I would drink probably. So yeah, and then we also we'll have our Origin, our original draft. It's kind of like our American lager that'll come back out this summer as well, and that's just like super light. But yeah, I think we like that idea of doing. We've also talked about maybe trying to do a Radler. There's some logistical issues with that, like trying to do it like a proper Radler, because we'd have to pasteurize it, because it's like unfermented sugars in there, because it's like 50% Pilsner and 50% grapefruit juice. So yeah, that's something it'd be cool to have it. It'd be cool to do it like a proper Radler, and not be like just like a bit of flavoring added. So we're gonna be having a meeting soon with decide what we're gonna do this summer. But then the Pilsner Elora, that'll be coming into the LCBO this summer. So, and we all love that beer too. It's we haven't brewed it for 2 years, but when we get asked all the time about it, so we'll be brewing a lot of Pilsner this summer.
Who would like to introduce the second beer?
That one should be Dave.
All right. Yeah, so we'll have the Dortmunder next. Green can, another green can. So yeah, this is the second time we've brewed this beer together. The Dortmunder, Elora's done a Dortmunder before, maybe before all of us were there. Did you brew a Dortmunder before, Andrew, when you were there, or was that before your time?
I think I caught just the beginning of it, or the end of it, I guess.
Okay, yeah. So this is one kind of turned into a seasonal, and like Aiden was saying about the water really defines this beer. So versus a lot of other lagers, you don't want a high mineral character in the beer, but Dortmunders are exactly that. It's a pale lager brewed with hard water, and we're able to replicate that water profile from the city of Dortmund pretty closely with our water profile. And it just brings out that kind of minerally character, like that full body, that full mouthfeel, and the bitterness is comes out too. And so what they say with the Dortmunder is has the bitterness of a Pilsner and the maltiness of a Helles lager. It's kind of the in between two styles, but brewed with hard water. We use the word decadent to describe this beer because it is that. It's like a rich. It's rich and it's light all at the same time. And it's yeah. I really like this beer, and it we gave it we had time just with scheduling, so we actually were able to lager it in tank for something like 12 weeks or something like that, where most of our lagers, maybe it'll get 6 weeks total time in tank, so it might be 4 weeks of lagering time, but this one just sat in there for 3 months, so really kind of really cleaned it up. And yeah.
So Derek's curious how you got the water profile. Is it something that's publicly available online?
Yeah, so you can find the city water profiles of the historical or like traditional or famous brewing cities from around the world. And then we have a brewing water program where it helps you dial everything in, but it lists, you can go to there's probably like 50 different cities. You can kind of see what the water profile is of that city to kind of to replicate it. And it's not always, you're not always going for to get it 100%, but you going for the ballpark of it, right?
Okay. So
yeah,
do you still favor doing lagers?
Me? Oh yeah, I love lagers. They're kind of, I find that they're the ultimate session beer, the ultimate beer you want to have drink a bunch of, right? I mean, I love IPA and stuff like that too, but I'll usually have one and move on. Where I find like this is just a beer that when you're going out with friends or you're going to the cottage or going camping or something like that, and having a cooler full of lager is never a bad thing.
That's true. That's very true.
And I think the appreciation for them it definitely is. It definitely is. They're getting well known because they're not just the watery lagers that we all kind of grew up drinking.
Yep.
They're, once you discover like German and Czech lagers, you can find out that there's actually like really flavorful, full-bodied lagers. And like I've had the privilege of going to Germany and Czech Republic, and it's a different drinking experience there. You go to a bar, I mean, craft beer is picking up there, but you go to a bar and you may be able to pick from 3 different beers. Like in Germany, it's usually the Helles, well, in Munich anyways, Helles, Dunkel, and the Hefeweizen. And when you're in Czech Republic, you can have pale, dark, or half dark. And there's just kind of just seems to be a whole lot more put into them versus, and then even with so we had, after Prohibition, our beers were kind of our beers here were dumbed down because we had a lot of German influence in North America, and they were brewing good beers. And then after Prohibition, when only a handful of breweries existed, they just started making a cheaper product. But even with like craft beer brewing, a lot of craft brewers might be just like, okay, well, it's pale and it's not hoppy, and they don't put much more thought into it than that. But really, it's all these nuances that you can add to it. And that's kind of what I love about them.
Aiden, I know you work for Dave. I could put you on the spot and go, what do you think of lagers? But my question to you is, on your brew day, what music do you listen to?
I don't listen to any music. Usually, like the brewery is such a neat place because with it being like a restaurant and the brewery in the back, like you hear the plates clashing together. You hear like you hear the customers chatting. You hear our pumps. You hear, like, if you've been in the brewery when we're mashing in, you hear the auger, and it's ridiculous how loud it can be at first. But yeah, there's like the odd time you'll hear the front of house music, but it's pretty funny. Like I've had brewing positions where I listen to music the whole time, but I've never once really felt out of Elora that I needed to listen to music. It's kind of like you're chatting with each other. Like Dave will be working on stuff, he'll pop by and chat with Andrew and I, and then we'll all just kind of like chat the whole day, and it makes it go by pretty quickly. And like as things come up, we ask each other kind of like, what should we do in this position or whatever, and it definitely kind of contributes to like the team atmosphere, us like chatting with each other rather than just like popping headphones in, putting your head down and working on your own.
Well, I thought maybe you would have the music over a loudspeaker, not on headphones.
Oh, yeah.
But that's okay.
Yeah,
No, I hear what you're saying. Yeah. So I'm going to ask Andrew a question, not for you to embarrass your coworkers, but what's the most funniest beer story or happening that you can recount from your days in brewing?
Ooh. I mean, I very much enjoyed Dave getting to shotgun a seltzer. That was that was pretty nice. It was pretty enjoyable. He almost became Seltzer Dave for a minute. He was thinking about it, but at the end of the day, he stuck with Lager Dave. he lost a bet on that one, so he got the satisfaction of shotgunning a seltzer.
It was the first time he ever shotgunned something too. Which
That's
is just
true
strange.
too. He had never shot. Yeah, I don't know how you get this old without shotgunning in your younger days, but
I just saw Katie's comment.
How's a seltzer go down on a shotgun?
Not so good. Carb too high or something. I don't know.
Wow. So Dave, what's new and exciting happening that you see in the beer industry right now?
Like trend wise?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, good question. I mean, I see a lot more like for our IPAs, I see a lot more West Coast IPAs around, which is cool because I mean I probably prefer like a New England IPA, but it's cool to see a bit more diversity in IPA styles because it's in a sense when it's all the same thing. It's no different than the monoculture of macro lagers back in 15, 20 years ago kind of thing, right? So it's nice to see it's kind of diversified. And yeah, we just brewed an English IPA not too long ago. What else did we do? Oh yeah, we did like a rye IPA not too long ago and a Belgian IPA. So that's cool. So like West Coast IPAs, you see it for lagers, you see it in a lot more people diving into Czech lagers. And so not just Pilsner, but like the Czech dark lagers and the Czech amber lagers as well. So you see seeing a lot more breweries, and then like now in the States, there's a couple breweries that are just doing those styles, which is cool. I really like that. I like when breweries kind of go for one thing. I know for the most part, most breweries try to cover all their bases. But at the same time, if you're gonna like really excel at one thing, that's great too, because there's so many breweries around. If there's a brewery that makes great IPAs, and then down the road there's a brewery that makes great lagers, I think that's awesome. We don't all have to be the best at everything.
Mhm. Andrew, what do you see that's new and exciting happening in the beer industry from your perspective?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's been really the embracing of lagers in general, and just expanding some of the different the styles within lagers, and I think just embracing by the general public, people that would only drink macro all their life, actually realizing that craft lagers are different and can be better. I think is important. I think it's a really good segue for a lot of people into craft beer, and I think that's continuing to improve a lot across the board. Yeah.
You know it's coming, Aiden.
All right. I don't know, maybe I'm way off on this, but I think the decline of like kettle sours and sour beers kind of in general, like I don't know, I think there's that one summer, probably like 2017 or 2018, where everyone drank sour beers and it was like a cool thing, but like probably all our teeth hurt from it now and we're just over that and want to drink lagers. But
The
yeah, I
dentists
think
are
like
happy though.
yeah, yeah, it was a good year for being a dentist, and that was about it. I don't know what Derek was saying about the sessionable double IPAs. I don't know where he finds those.
I think he's passed out already.
Probably one of the reasons I'm taking a few days off.
Thanks, Derek. Apart from Elora, and you guys can decide who answers this one, what would be your favorite craft brewery or craft beer restaurant in the region that you would attend to?
In the region?
Your pick in the region, yeah.
I always like going to St. Jacobs and going to Block 3 and the beer garden there. Just great atmosphere, great people. That's kind of, and it's close by, so that's kind of one of my top picks.
Yeah.
What do you guys say?
Go ahead, Aiden.
I love that. Like, I go to Shortfinger pretty frequently, and like anytime I stop in there, Rob just like has the most ridiculous stuff that's like always really solid. Like, I stopped in last Friday and got the new Black is Beautiful that was like barrel aged in funky barrels, and like I've never been a big Imperial Stout fan, but I am when it's in a funky barrel. So like trying that sort of stuff. And even like anytime that he has a new Lando out, I always pick up a few bottles of that. So I'd have to say Shortfinger.
Yep. The Lando series is excellent, that's for sure.
Yeah.
So, Andrew, what's yours?
I wish I could get out of the house enough to actually go anywhere.
Oh, okay. Dave, you're working
well,
them too hard.
Yeah, it's I don't have the luxury of being in KW like these guys, and being closer to the action, so it's a little more difficult. But
So the Goofy Newfie then?
the Goofy Newfie serves a real mean brown ale. I don't know who brews it, but it's the Goofy brown ale. It's great.
You could probably get blue there too.
I think you can. But yeah, I mean, I'm a big fan of Shortfinger too. So some of the few times I get out, I tend to go that way too.
Okay. Rob does do an excellent job. Who'd like to introduce the next beer?
Andrew, you want to do the next one? Do you want to do Borealis?
Yeah, sure. So Borealis is one of our longest beers that we've had on the go. It's changed a little bit over time. I think it's one of those beers that has continued to develop and change, but I think it's been in a pretty good spot as of late. It's a pale ale. It was I feel like pretty early on it was kind of leaning into the hazier side of things, but still a pale ale as opposed to a bigger ABV IPA. I think that makes it pretty desirable. So we use Galaxy and Citra are our hops for this one. It's pretty nice and soft. I think it's just a really well balanced pale ale that is that still kind of leans into the New England style. It's also fun to see as with the same hops that have been in it throughout time. It's cool to see how every new batch of both the Galaxy and Citra kind of change it just a little bit. We just got the new crop of Citra, and so you can even just start to see a little bit of change even over the last couple batches compared to the batches before. So I think it's kind of cool when something stays pretty similar over time, but only changing the hops, which is kind of what I like about IPAs too. How you can see how just those hops can change it, and just the year, the same hop even, but just the year and the new crop can change that. So there's a little more like kind of notes of like orange, little touch of grapefruit, but not really. Like it's I feel like it kind of just fits a little bit of everything in there.
Has
So,
Borealis always been a cloudy IPA?
I think, ever since I have been there, it has been, but I think early on it was not nearly. I don't think it was cloudy at all. And then I think maybe a year or two into it, they were trying to adjust the calcium chloride to play with the water profile, and I think they were just slowly adjusting it over time and really trying to dial it in. And they finally hit the point where they decided to go with haze and stay with that.
Yep. Derek's curious if you guys get the opportunity, and with COVID, I'm sure you haven't, but would you have the opportunity to actually go and select hops?
We have not. It'd be awesome to, but we have not had that privilege.
We've had like a couple times where like there's been a lot number that we've gotten. We're like, hey, that's nice. And I think we've like reached out to Bob, who we get our hops from, and like stuck with that lot for the remainder of it. Like,
so some minimal choice, kind of choice within some parameters.
Yeah, but you never actually have had the opportunity to travel to a place like Yakima and
not yet.
Yeah,
it'd be nice to. Maybe like, all of us. Andrew's been there a bit longer than Aiden and I, but I started in February of 2022, or sorry, 2020, and we all know what happened 5 weeks after that. So I've only worked at Elora during this whole last 2 years of the pandemic. So it's been harder to get out and do anything, right? So let alone jump on a plane and go select hops. But yeah, that would be awesome. It'd be something that'd be really fun to do.
It's certainly what everyone who talks about it has fond memories of making the travels to selecting your hops. So Dave, I've been asked to ask the question I sometimes ask people that attend. Well, what book would I find on your nightstand right now? Since you've got a set of books behind you. So
yeah. Oh man, there's a book on my nightstand, but I don't know if it's the best one. I have some thick, like super boring, dry textbooks there. I'm just trying to, just comb through and just pull out a couple of details and, something about water chemistry and iron or copper, just like
a good pre-bedtime read.
Yeah. My wife looks at me and she's like, "What's wrong with you? Like, can't you just be normal? Can't you just read a normal book like a normal person?" But yeah. And then what other books? I've been reading a Malcolm Gladwell book recently. He's great author, not Brewing related, but great author. And he actually grew up in Elmira, where I grew up, so it's kind of kind of cool. And then recently I've been reading a book by Simon Sinek, who's kind of this guy who's kind of he's taught me a lot about try to learn a lot from him about leadership and that sort of thing. And he's got some really cool books. Books called Leaders Eat Last, and it's really eye opening.
Andrew, what would we
I
find
got,
you reading right now?
I'm in the middle of Dune. So
A series or the first book?
first book with the a reread of the first book so that I can get into the rest of the series.
Okay.
Yeah.
Triggered because of the new movie or just an interest?
I mean, sci-fi is always my go-to, so it's been coincides with the movie, which I also want to watch.
Well, we'll have to compare libraries because I haven't finished cataloging all of mine, and I'm up over 900.
Oh wow.
Yeah. Aiden, what have you been reading?
Actually, a book that Dave let me borrow. He back maybe like November, he gave me 2 lager books, if you can believe it. And there's a dark lager one, and with like the weather, and we brewed a Schwartz beer back in the fall with Escarpment Labs. So drinking that and kind of reading through that book's always nice.
Very dry reading. Okay.
That book's actually really interesting. That's like probably the best written brewing book I've read through, because it's easy to read through. There's lots of like really interesting history, not just of the beer styles, but of lager yeast and all that stuff. It's
okay.
Very cool book.
So it's not dry. It's interesting. So I'm basing these off of some of the questions that people have asked other brewers and brewery owners that are on the show. Has there been a significant shift in licensees away from kegs to cans?
We're still doing, when things are open, we're still doing a lot of kegs, a lot of draft, but we see a lot more places, bottle shops and places offering beer to go now that they can, which is a great, like, another market to have. Because I mean, it's like but at a restaurant, maybe there's been like some that, like, feared, how many times have we been locked down now and you have half a keg left over or whatever. So I mean, I still haven't gone out a whole lot, but maybe you see a lot of places that don't have their full lineup of kegs going, and maybe they're offering some cans to complement that. It kind of seems like, but I mean, as soon as things get open again, our kegs just get flowing again, and it's pretty crazy to see how it can go from nothing to just to like whatever 50 kegs a day going out or whatever it is, right? Like,
yeah. Okay. So Derek's curious how far you guys do distribution to licensees.
So we're where are we going? We're going up until, well, now we just hired a new sales rep who is who's in Durham region, and so we're just kind of covering a bit more ground, and then I know we're trying to maybe get up Ottawa way eventually, but like, we're just kind of covering, like, southern and central Ontario for the most part. We just got one guy that pretty much does all the deliveries, but then we're talking about maybe trying to get into Ottawa, because we have a lot of customers in the Ottawa area, so we're talking about maybe even trying to get up there for a road trip and kind of get out there a bit.
Yep. And he's also curious, what's the furthest you think you've shipped from like an online order?
Good question.
I know Andrew and I hand delivered a
True.
can to the Chateau Frontenac in Quebec City.
Quebec City.
Okay, well, you
single
know
can.
what? That's probably the furthest you guys have done that. Whether that was an
Yeah.
online order or not, well,
Single can.
One can. Yep.
One can.
Left it
straight
on a
to the
statue for one lucky pedestrian.
wow. Okay, so were you guys doing that as a joke or a promotional?
We were there for the Canadian Brewing Awards.
Oh, okay.
We needed it there for a promotional picture on the statue, and it just happened to stay where it had the picture taken.
I bet it's
That's-
still there now.
Probably.
I think
So-
on our way back, it was enjoyed that night. Like, I think somebody took it off the statue by the time we left, but
Oh,
my
probably.
memory is a little bit fuzzy.
Probably. Full can of beer.
So Aiden, I'm going to ask you this question, and then you with Dave and Andrew, you can be ready to answer it. Who do you think is the most interesting up and coming new brewer in Ontario?
I think like that Stillfields brewery is really unique. I know like Owen's kind of got that experience from Bellwoods. I think maybe not up and coming, they've been around for a while, but Matron, every single thing that they brew, like I've never had a bad beer from there. They probably also have the best like they're the best foam positive brewery in Ontario. So I'm gonna just like give them the award for that because that's what I want every beer to be.
So which one of you would like to answer for me now?
Go for it, Andrew. I'm still thinking. I don't know.
Oh.
Andrew, we just tossed it off to you.
I mean, Stillfield was actually going to be my answer before Aiden rudely took it. I have not had an opportunity to have anything from them, but the things that I've seen and just kind of what they're doing seems really interesting. So,
Dave, it's on your shoulders now.
I'm just trying to. It's hard when you don't get out very much, with
Well,
two
that's
kids and-
been the hardest thing for the last 2 years. I mean, you don't get out to see other brewers. You don't get opportunities to do face-to-face collabs. Totally understand that, but I'm just
Yeah.
wondering if there's anybody you think that's sort of deserving of a mention.
You know what? There's a couple of breweries that maybe they're not up and coming. They've been around for a while, but who I always, when I see them, I'll always grab their beers. And one is Sawdust City. I think they make really good beer. They're everything I've had from them is awesome, and I think we always drive past there when we're going up to the cottage, and we try to stop and get some beers. And their Little Norway lager, it's Pilsner now or something like that. That's a great beer. I don't think they get enough recognition for that beer. People are always talking about for lagers anyways. Nobody really mentions that one, and it's a great beer. And also Cameron's makes really good beer, and maybe doesn't always get the mention, and not always to talk about lagers. But if when you're at the LCBO and you see their Captain's Log lager, give it a try, because that's another like solid beer that again doesn't get the mention that it deserves. And those guys also make really good IPAs as well.
Who's going to introduce the last beer for us?
Here it is. Yeah, we can all kind of chime in on this one. This is a fun beer to make. It started with this idea of actually before, if whoever's cracking one, just give it a light shake, not too hard. It's on nitro, so You're not gonna. There's not too much CO2 in it. So you're not gonna hopefully make a huge mess in your living room. And then when you pour it, just
Straight
go
upside
for it.
down.
Just straight upside down. Yeah. Yeah, this beer was. So yeah, we had this idea a little while ago that we should get together with the other makers of Elora. So it's a small town, as you guys know, and there's a lot of really unique kind of shops and artisans in the town. And before, or right when I started at Elora, Greg from Elora Bread reached out to me, and I'd never even met him before, but he just started talking beer because he's a home brewer and he's a beer guy, and we kind of hit it off, and we've since become really good friends. And he owns a bakery right up the road, and we trade bread for beer like weekly kind of thing. He's a great guy, making great bread. And then Paul Lakowitz became the head distiller at the Elora Distilling, and Paul worked at Block 3 previously to that, and his wife at the time was the GM for the restaurant at the brewery. And then we have the coffee, Elora Cafe and coffee roasters, who are making great coffee, and all these places have like really cool startup stories, and they're just really really cool small businesses. So we're thinking how could we kind of combine this all together. So we thought like, well, coffee and stout goes well, but how can we incorporate everyone else? So we took these the coffee beans, and they were roasted and then aged in a rum barrel from the distillery. Then those beans were taken out, and we made this big imperial stout with them. From there, the beer part of the beer was aged again in that rum barrel, and blended back into the beer. And now the bakery was going to be making a big feature bread out of the spent grain and maybe some of the beer and stuff like that, but they've had a fire. So they've been, by the time they're back up and running in March, it'll probably be 6 months that they've been out of business. So they're gonna eventually, we're gonna make this a yearly thing anyways, where we kind of do the same process every year, and maybe the beer changes and maybe the process changes a bit, but how can we kind of incorporate all of these cool businesses and people and our friends into this process? And we ended up with this 8% imperial coffee nitro stout. I don't know if you guys want to talk a bit more about the beer itself.
Yeah. One thing we kind of talked fairly extensively about was like how we were going to add the coffee in. I think a lot of people just jumped to like, we're going to add it right into the fermenter. And from all of our experience, I think we kind of found that we didn't like the flavors of like that coffee added in there, and maybe like the roll of oxygen while it's added in like cold side. So we added it. We cooled the wort down before pitching any yeast or anything, and got it down to like a nice coffee steeping temperature, and then circulated it kind of like through a hop back and back into the kettle. So I think it really brought the flavor out more than we almost expected, and but it's not just like super coffee forward. Like it's almost 9 at night and we're still able to drink it. And, Andrew and I will be up bright and early, but it's one of those beers where it's just like all of those parts coming together, and then like I couldn't imagine that it was going to turn out any better than this. Like when we packaged it and everything, like I was amazed by it, and still tonight, like this is probably one of my favorite like imperial stouts I've ever had.
Andrew, you want to add anything to that?
And I think the nitro really adds a lot to it. I think if we had just kind of carved it as your standard imperial stout, I feel like it adds a little bit more of a carbonic bite. It can kind of leave it a little sharper. Whereas I think using the nitro kind of just softens it up and just makes it a little just a little like overall softer, a little nicer. And I think it kind of also allows some of those other coffee notes to come through a little more. And it was also just a cool experience using the nitro for the first time on the canning line, which was pretty cool.
No disasters?
No disasters. It went very, very smoothly. A little blast of liquid nitrogen into each can, and you're good to go. So yeah, it was great.
That's good. Now, Andrew, Aiden, I've asked Dave this question before, and I'm going to ask it to him again, but you can think about your answer and get prepared for it. Dave, who would you like to spend a day brewing beer with, or we're talking about beer with? If there's anybody that you would like, just like that would be the ultimate thing for you to do.
Yeah, great question. I mean, maybe I don't know if it could be more than one answer. Maybe Michael Jackson. Back in the day, I mean, not the Michael Jackson we're all thinking of right now, but the other Michael Jackson, the beer Michael Jackson. I mean, that Michael Jackson
right.
would be pretty sweet too. I'd hang out with Michael Jackson for a day, and that guy had such an influence on beer as we know it, and he was writing about beers from around the world before most people even knew, most people here knew they existed. So I think that'd be cool. And there's a bit of history when I used to work at Wellington, as some of you guys may know, and he visited Wellington. I don't know when it was, if it was still the early 90s or something like that. And he planted the tree that's out front of Wellington. He planted that tree. There's pictures of him at the brewery planting that tree. So I think that's really cool. But I think also I think what's his name? Chris from Notch Brewery, and he's kind of cool. He's kind of on the forefront of studying Czech lagers, and he's done a lot of really cool. I've learned a lot from him just on podcasts I've listened to him and stuff like that. So he's I think he'd be a fun guy to hang out with.
And yes, I appreciated the fact that you brewed beer with me at Wellington for my birthday party.
Oh yeah, that was always a fun time.
That was actually my favorite memory of you on that one. One of the persons turned to you and said, "Dave, how would you guys do this? We were zesting blood orange and then juicing them to put in the beer, and without missing a beat." Dave looked at him and said, "We wouldn't work this hard." And that was like, that was such a perfect answer. It's like, we wouldn't be doing this. Like,
yeah, those were fun times. And then just drinking the beer at kickoff, man, that was fun.
So Andrew, who would you want to spend a day brewing or talking beer with?
I'll go with a personal fan favorite, Action Bronson, who is a former chef, current rapper, who's right into my hip hop vibes, but also a host of Fuck That's Delicious, a great food meets culture TV show. Just seems like a super down to earth. He really knows food. He has a huge appreciation for natural wine. And food in general, and I feel like it'd be a lot of fun. And he'd bring his whole crew along, which would be make all the work easier. Someone to mill in for me.
That would be interesting if you had a whole crew there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Aiden.
Either Jen Mad, who's formerly of Dota Seal, or Avery Swanson, who's formerly of Jester King. Both of them I just feel like are like kind of legends in the industry for different reasons. And Jen's from Ontario, so I think that's kind of cool that she maybe made Dota Seal what it is today, and it's cool that she's like from like small towns in Ontario.
Yeah, I accept that. Yeah. So, Aiden, what would you like everybody to take away from this chat tonight?
That's a good question. Drink more saison.
See, Derek, it's almost like yours. Drink more beer. Andrew.
Just enjoy your beer. Think as you're drinking it, really appreciate the work that's gone into it, appreciate the thought that has gone into it. It's more than just beer. It's a lot of heart, a lot of thought, a lot of creativity has gone into everything. So yeah.
Dave.
Yeah, I'd say these conversations are great, and that I would say to like reach out to your local craft brewers. I mean, we're always love chatting, and I think most brewers do. You know, maybe you don't walk in on the busy day, but like, you know, send in an email or whatever. I always love answering questions from people who have questions about beer. It's just this kind of thing is great. Just in engaging about it and having forming a relationship with whoever that is, and then in both good and bad. Like we want to hear when our beer is good, but if you ever get a bad beer from us, we definitely want to hear about it. You know, because we want to fix the issue, and it could be a number of things. Maybe the beer is sat on a shelf warm for too long that we didn't know about, or maybe there's something along the line. So like we want to hear any feedback we can get.
Yeah. Well, I'd like to thank the three of you for taking time out of your busy schedule and spending this hour chatting with us about the beer at Elora Brewing. So Dave, again, thank you for being back on the show again. It's always a pleasure to have a conversation with you about beer. Andrew, Aiden, it is such a pleasure to have a chance to meet the two of you. Thank you for being guests on my show.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
And stop by the brewery anytime, guys. It'd be nice to see you guys in person.